Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully we will start in a couple of minutes. Thanks for your patience. Good morning, good afternoon, folks. Give us another minute or two, and we will be live. Hi, folks. We should be there in 1 minute. Thanks very much.
Hey, good afternoon, Lee. How are you doing?
Is that you, Matt?
It is. I'm on.
Okay. Well, terrific. I believe we are live and ready to go. So thanks very much, everybody, for joining us today. This is the third event of our Hybrid Cloud webcast series, where we've really focused on use cases and customer success stories on how companies are using public cloud resources, but still able to keep their data private for enterprise applications. In today's session, we'll hear from NetApp's own IT organization and how they've deployed hybrid cloud for our own environment. Let me go live. What I'd like to do first is just cover 2 slides to set the stage for what we've talked about before and where we're going today. The first explains NetApp's data fabric, or our cloud strategy, on how we are helping customers provide flexibility and choice for their enterprise applications. So on this picture, you'll see 3 clouds depicted. On the bottom is typically a private cloud, which most companies have on-prem in their own data center. On the upper right are inside the cloud applications, or data services, where customers run in Amazon or Azure Marketplace for totally public. What we're going to talk about today is in the upper left, hybrid cloud, or cloud-connected colocation that leverages our partnership with Equinix so customers can connect to cloud but maintain complete control and security of their corporate data. And this is pretty unique to NetApp. The objective is to give customers choice of where you want to run your applications. And moving data between clouds is a challenge. Data has weight or gravity. It doesn't move easily or quickly between clouds. And we'll talk about how we can facilitate that. The particular solution that enables this type of capability, which we'll hear about from NetApp IT, is called NetApp Private Storage for Cloud. And it effectively, if you think about your own data center on the left, we partner with Equinix, and you'll hear more about why, as our cloud-connected colocation provider, and place dedicated NetApp storage inside a colo cabinet at the Equinix data center facility. What this provides is data next to the cloud instead of inside it. And by connecting that storage with a high-speed 10 gigabyte link to Equinix's Cloud Exchange, that provides multiple connections to multiple clouds through a single connection to where your data resides. And what that delivers is the capabilities on the left. It gives customers multi-cloud choice to prevent vendor lock-in. because storage and your data is physically close to cloud compute resources, it delivers high application performance for your production applications. Because your cloud data stays on the storage in the Equinix data center, it doesn't go into the cloud. It maintains data security, control, compliance, and sovereignty. And because we use dedicated connections instead of wide area network links, it facilitates and eases and helps you control cloud expenses. What we found with this unique capability is it enables a bunch of different workloads. Disaster recovery to replace your second site. A lot of companies are getting out of the data center business or consolidating and eliminating some of their second sites for disaster recovery. Test and development is a very good one because it has unpredictable requirements for compute resources depending on your software release cycles. And as we move into production, data analytics that requires mass amounts of compute resources, either once a week, once a month, or end of year, are ideal for these type of elastic applications. So with that, I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Matt Brown. He's the Executive Director here at NetApp. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at NetApp and how long you've been here?
Excellent, Lee. Thank you very much. So good day, everybody. Really appreciate your time today. So my name is Matt Brown. I report to our CIO. My job today is really to share our journey, our digital transformation journey, as leader of the NetApp on NetApp program. As most of you know, most high-tech companies have these IT on IT shops, and really what the goal is to share how we utilize NetApp product to really enable our business and provide some practical use cases on how we're doing that. I've been with NetApp for about 18 years. I've held various roles both in the business as well as IT. My last official full-time day job at IT was leader of delivery. And I had owned that organization as cloud had first started coming into play in the corporate world. So I have a lot of firsthand experience on both adopting the cloud, how we leveraged the cloud, and how we learned our lessons and operationalizing the cloud. So I'll be sharing with you today is our experience using NetApp Private Storage and really leveraging the cloud for all the capabilities it offers, and all while protecting our data. As we have gone forward, really the hybrid cloud is part of our day-to-day operating model today. And before I get into some of the details, you know, I get the great privilege of talking to many of our customers. And one of the common threads is that most of us are going through some type of a transformation process, digital or otherwise. And before we start that conversation, I like to level set on really what the scope and breadth of NetApp IT is, so you can kind of get a flavor of how big or how small we are compared to you. And I do think it's important to understand that because while most of us have the same challenges, it's really the size and complexity of the organization that really is one of the key differences. So at NetApp IT, we manage about 5 data centers, of which 2 are really relevant. We have a production data center, and we have a subprod data center that are the prime parts of our operations. Manage about 5,000 servers. I know it says 75% there. We're completely virtualized. It's how much that virtualization is shared. I'm a firm believer that virtualization means those assets are available to any and all applications. And probably like most of you, we still have some applications that, while virtualized, to some extent, they have their own resources dedicated to them in that concept. 52 petabytes of storage. That's usually where people go, well, of course, Matt, you work for NetApp, you get all the storage you want. I can't, actually. I pay for storage. I'd have to pay for the cost of goods in that context. But again, as most of you IT people know, that's just the beginning of the cost. There's still the data center, the space, power, cooling, and the most expensive resource there is your admin. So I do have some natural limiters to that, and they all have to fit into my working budget. Have about 550 applications that IT manages for the business, and about 400 IT employees. If you actually extend that out to alternative workforces, we have about 1,000 people who work in IT at NetApp. We do try to maintain a customer at arm's length experience. But one of the things, unlike other customers, is that we are early adopters of our product. And like probably most of you, we do provide feedback to our product teams to make our products better. And we take that very seriously. In fact, we adopt code at release before GA, not to test it, but to really exercise it for the first time in a corporate environment. We're not asked to do that, but we believe as customer one, we have an obligation to experience those solutions before you do, to ensure that through the production operations that we catch any remaining bugs before you do. We really take it that seriously. And we have been doing this now for going on 3 years. And that's when I come into play. I have left my full-time job to really focus on sharing our experiences and to share both the good, the bad, and how we've gone through it, and really to share lessons learned through the adoption of these new technologies, and I'll be sharing some of those today. So, why? Most of us get a directive from our CIO. So let's talk about a CIO, and also let's talk about then the greater motivators out there that are really influencing our decisions to go to the cloud, and why we're looking at leveraging certain solutions to help us do that as wisely as possible. So most CIOs today are really tasked with adopting technology to go to market faster, to enable a better customer experience, and really do that at the most cost-efficient way possible. And today, really what that means is not just leveraging solutions in your own data center, leveraging any and all technology solutions that are out there. And this is that whole hybrid cloud concept. And as opposed to that goal, there are many challenges. In fact, in our NetApp IT use case specifically, we've been going through a digital transformation over the last 2 years, where we have actually reduced our budget by half. So when you're talking about the whole concept of doing more with less and the expectations of modern business, we face, I think, a little bit of different of a use case where we have less resources to do this with, which is actually highly motivating us to really look to the cloud to provide these capabilities. And as probably as most of you are going through this, the business is changing their view on data. They're looking to data to not only be able to learn more about their own business and more about the industry that they're in, but also looking at data to potentially create new revenue streams. It's a very exciting time, and they're looking at IT to provide the capabilities to do this, which, as Lee was talking about, it goes beyond just basic data analytics. It becomes data science and enabling capabilities that allow businesses to access this data is mandatory in our space today. And along with that, there's an ever-increasing awareness to security. So when we're looking to deliver solutions maybe outside of our data center, and I would argue you have to look at solutions outside of your data center, it's how do you do that in a secure way and in a way that enables business and agility to move seamlessly as new solutions are provided out in the marketplace. And like most of us, more and more of our field or of our people are moving to the field, be it through sales, support, professional services, a variety of other responsibilities, and we need to extend those solutions out to the field as fast and as effective as possible. And I see one of the biggest enablers here, as from a practical use case, is the hybrid cloud. And when you're looking to the hybrid cloud, the biggest challenge I think most IT shops face is, well, what should I move to the cloud? And then and then how do I manage my data once it's there? And that's what we're here to talk about today, and how we've looked at this and how we have realized that there are certain tools that are very important to enable our ability to leverage the cloud, as Lee mentioned, not just to avoid vendor lock-in, but also to allow the expansion of services and our ability to leverage those services as they are provided, regardless of the provider that is out there. And I think this is probably the biggest and most exciting parts to this story. So what are the expectations then of managing in a hybrid world? It is all about your data. And the biggest expectation is that you'll have the data when you need it. I think a lot of people have this thought in their head that, well, data has to move around for me to manage it. If you're moving data around, especially any significant amounts of data, that takes time. And time in most IT shops we don't have anymore. The expectations are that data will be available and we'll have the capabilities of making that data available to stay ahead of the business. So this activity and the expectations then is, regardless of the cloud, and let me pause here for a second, a cloud is just another data center. So the expectation is that you should be able to work between these data centers, these clouds, very seamlessly. And when you're having data available, it needs to be protected, needs to follow your security guidelines to not just protect you and your IP, but also protect your customers. And again, the whole premise here is to extend your capabilities out to the public space. Not just to leverage the capabilities of maybe one or two providers today, but be ready to embrace tomorrow. There will always be new solutions offered, new players in this space. And if we're to maintain our agility, we need to be ready to accept them and ready to operate and start to leverage them as fast as possible. And let's all be candid. You know, even if we were told to move all of our stuff to the cloud tomorrow, most of us, especially if you were born before the cloud era, have a lot of systems that are sitting in our on-prem data center that probably won't be cloud ready for a while. But the expectation is that data from those systems does need to be available. And as you migrate or move your legacy systems out into the cloud, you're still operating in a single model, which is just, again, a multi-data center strategy, what we call the hybrid cloud. And giving these expectations, you really need to think about not only what moves to the cloud and how you move to the cloud, but again, as Lee mentioned, it is all about your data. The data becomes central to pretty much doing everything you need to do today and as you go forward in IT. And again, let's talk about some of the specifics on what we're looking at to achieve. So, oops, sorry. So hold on, sorry. So let's talk about why we're looking at the cloud. What are our considerations? What are we looking to achieve? What are we looking in terms of business outcomes? You know, at the end of the day, we are all here to provide some capabilities, some value in terms of business outcomes. So what we're really trying to achieve is this ability to go to market faster. For NetApp, what that means is shorten our development cycles on our products. Being able to launch new products, not in quarters or years, but sometimes in months. Looking to enhance our customer service. I'm sure most of you in the field realize, or most of you on the call realize, customer service is a differentiator in the marketplace. So how do we provide better customer service, more self-service, faster service, more efficient service? And other things we're looking at, especially in an internal IT shop, is how do we enable innovation? We want to shorten that cycle as much as possible. Most of you have probably heard the term fail fast. And really what that means is allow people to experiment, to find the right solutions, and then being able to turn those solutions either into revenue-generating offerings or to turn them into efficiencies into day-to-day operations. And in this whole activity, we have to be concerned about the governance around it. There are both legal considerations to be worried about, security, protection of your own IP. Many, many things have to occur there, and that has to be an element of how you're executing and how you're performing in achieving these types of goals. So again, we talked about some of the challenges from the CIO, some of the motivators there. IT is really expected to become this enabler, this value-added provider, this trusted partner with the business. We looked at the fact that it's almost impossible to keep up with the changing marketplace today without leveraging some external resources and the necessity there. And we talked about the criticality that data plays and how data is really becoming the central concern in managing day-to-day IT and looking to data in different ways that we never really thought about. So let's pause there and talk about really what this means to the data center. And what we mean by that is that, especially for me coming through this journey, every time we talked about delivering solutions, there's always been this inclination to say, well, what can I do in my own data center first? Because, you know, at certain scales, I could probably do it cheaper. And I think that's a fact. But there are certain things that we can't do. And in our use case here, it was a very good use case to go through. We just recently hired a new CIO. He joined about 15 months ago. His name's Bill Miller, comes from Broadcom. Brought a whole different perspective to the way we do IT. And about 6 months into it, he sat us all down and said, hey, I think it's time to look at our next-gen data center, and can you guys come back to me with a proposal? And it was a great exercise. We're about 6 years into a 10-year data center life, so it's an appropriate time to do this. And we did what I think most IT shops would do, and came back with the latest space power cooling and the latest server technology, and of course how our own storage gear would work, and very good, solid on-prem data center solution. And we got about 15 minutes into the presentation, and he paused. And he said, before you go and continue, let me ask you a few questions about this great next-gen data center proposal. He goes, we have a need and a demand to be able to do and look at data and do data analytics differently. So in this solution, can I spin up a HANA Hadoop instance, say, tomorrow, and let marketing go out and explore some opportunities? Can I spin up a whole POC that might require 4,000 VMs? Can I maybe go online and enable an ERP tomorrow for a new business unit we're thinking about creating? Can your solution do that? And we all kind of looked at him and said, well, no. And he goes, oh, and as you're thinking about that, I need to have all that data protected. I need access to it. And I need the flexibility of being able to change providers. Can your proposal do that? And we all thought about it, and we looked at it, and we said, wow, I think we were a little off, and we were way off. And we came out with this as a proposal, as a high level. This was actually a multi-page presentation, but I really like the imagery here because I think it conveys the world that we live in today. The next-gen data center, when we went and did our reversion 2, had a fundamental premise, is that there is no longer a center of data when you're looking at terms of business capability. In order to provide solutions for those use cases that we just went through, many of those can't be done within our own data center in terms of providing that in a fast, agile way. The only way to do that is on demand or to pay for it as a service, which meant that we had to not only leverage one cloud provider, the possibilities are that we probably have to leverage many. And we had to think beyond today. We know what the world looks like today, and where our journey started 5 years ago, there was only AWS and IBM software, I think it was what it was called at the time. And today, we have Azure and Google, and who knows who else is going to get into this business. And we need the capabilities to keep expanding, to grow, to scale, because the business won't tolerate the timings of having months or quarters before we can provide capabilities. And in the same notion, our CIO, and I think many CIOs out there, are looking to enable fast IT. Now, there's this Gartner concept of fast IT, which contrasts it against the traditional waterfall technology. But fast IT has a little bit kind of different connotation for us in NetApp IT. Fast IT also means focusing your IT resources on what matters to your organization. For example, if I have key resources spending time on managing email or tier 2 applications or routine applications, I'm probably not investing my time or money wisely. I need to have my key resources focused on what makes NetApp unique, to help us go to market faster, to enable better new product introductions, and to enable a better customer experience and a better experience for our people in the field, which means I have to start looking at what is contextual, and this is the traditional core context conversation, with much higher focus. And in that space, we're really looking at to leverage then the SaaS providers to help us solve that problem. And when you're looking at then the entire IT operational model, SaaS then has to be a part of that. And now let's expand that then into our traditional data centers. And like I said, if you were born your company was born before 2005, it's likely you have many legacy systems, and they're going to be around for quite a while. And in order to be able to operate in a model like this, as Dave was talking about the data fabric, this is the data fabric conversation. How do I have data be able to be available and manage in this holistic construct, knowing that there is no longer a center of data and an on-prem solution was no longer really an option if you're going to provide the agility necessity to move you into the future. And as we're doing this, again, it's all about security and governance and being able to manage that as well. And this is where NetApp Private Storage really fits in. And why do we like NetApp Private Storage, and how did this come to be? So part of our role, and as we were talking earlier when I was doing the introductions, part of our role in NetApp and Customer One is also looking to the future. In fact, when we first started going into the cloud, we realized that regardless of how fast I can deliver, it was almost a transactional exercise to talk about what kind of data I can and cannot put into the cloud. And in fact, in our specific use case, and because I own delivery, we were able to take delivery of entire ecosystems down to minutes. And then we found that it was going to take weeks, if not months, to get a legal approval then to move the data along with this really cool delivery system. And the ability then to deliver into the cloud became the biggest challenge because, as Lee stated, data has a lot more awareness today. And we went back to our own company and we said, hey, as NetApp is a vendor, we need a way to go and leverage the cloud in a way that we can keep our data secure and also, I would argue, to control some costs. And let me pause here. If any of you have gone into the cloud, you realize that you're paying for a configuration, but you're also paying for usage. And if we could go to the cloud and limit that usage variable to just compute, we could control costs a lot better as well. So we said, NetApp, we need a solution not only to protect our data, but also to help us manage costs, and as Lee said, to avoid vendor lock-in, and I'll expand on that, but also to leverage any and all vendors for any and all new solutions that they provide. And NetApp responded and came back with this concept of NetApp Private Storage. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, and I might get a little trouble with marketing. I don't really care for the name. I think it should be called NetApp Near Cloud Storage or something, because what it really is, and Lee had talked about, was putting your data near the cloud. One of the, outside of security and the control of costs, as you all know, you have to have your data close enough to the compute to deal with latency. And the solution that we offer is quite elegant in that construct. So let's talk very briefly about it, because I think some of you maybe have seen the earlier webinars that talked a little bit about how this works. But basically, when Amazon, Azure, Google all built their solution sets, they build them around points of presence all throughout the globe. And they can't usually do this by themselves. They need partners. And when a partner is participating here, especially if they're offering an extended solution of any of those providers in their data center, they must present that solution just as if it was coming out of one of these major providers. So what a company like Equinix in this context did was built this high-speed routed network, as Lee was talking about, that connects to all these clouds with very, very low latency. And what the NetApp Private Storage solution then offers is to put a device out there near the cloud, which just becomes an extension of your own network, and allow you to leverage this high-speed network to leverage any and all cloud providers as you wish. Initially, we did this for infrastructure as a service, but as most of you have seen, they're going beyond infrastructure as a service. They're offering a lot of third-party platforms, as Lee had mentioned, for data analytics and for, in that context, for HANA, for Hadoop, for AI. And now, because we have this type of a model in place, we can now leverage this capability and be able to be responsive to the business as business needs. And I think most of us have gone through this at some point in time. You know, these showback and chargeback models? Well, this is a perfect way to start to be able to leverage a chargeback model, because you get a direct bill. You can actually bill someone for going and leveraging a HANA solution tonight, and let them manage, if that value is there, to leverage those services. It really helps us start to change the concept from being an IT shop ticket taker to really being a true provider of solutioning, and really expand your capabilities in ways like I really believe that never been possible. So what does this look like for NetApp IT? So we have, again, been on this journey for a little bit of time, and we are looking to continue to expand our journey. But the way it looks is we have a private cloud, and what's not on here, let's be candid, I also have a legacy data center that overlaps the private cloud because there is data that needs to be shared. We are leveraging the public cloud. We have about 100 applications of our 500 applications currently running in that. We currently leverage both Amazon and Azure, soon to be Google, to leverage and again expand our capabilities and service offerings through these key vendors. And we're also a big public SaaS provider. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And the way we keep these things in sync is through NetApp technology called SnapMirror. So this concept of I'm not moving data, I'm keeping it in sync. If I want and believe that another data set should be out there, I'll move another data set out there so it's available when we need it. And I keep it in sync on the back end through, again, a SnapMirror type solution. So how do I manage this? We have a product called On-Command Insight. This really gives us the visibility not to what's on-prem, but we extend that capability out into the cloud to really start to manage our footprint in a more holistic fashion. Now let's take a step back. And I'll relate my real-world experience here as far as taking this step forward. A lot of us get uncomfortable when something is beyond our control or beyond our reach or beyond our management capabilities, which implies also you need to have tools and similar processes to manage. And one of the ways we got over our fear was to create consistency in the tools that we use on-prem and expand those tool capabilities off-prem. I will argue that as you're expanding into the cloud, the more time you spend to make that a consistent experience and not a different experience, the quicker you'll find adoption internally. And that's exactly what we've done. We use the same tools internally to keep things in sync, for either for lead mentioned for DR or for data protection or what have you, as we do as we're leveraging into the hybrid cloud. Same tools for management. When you're talking to our administrators, administrators could be anywhere. In fact, we're dispersed out throughout the globe. And they use this common tools. It just literally becomes another place to put a piece of hardware, and we're seamlessly managing data on top of that, really allowing us to achieve certain goals. So let's talk about some proof points now, because all this is really neat and cool. But unless you're providing business value, as I mentioned earlier, does it really matter? So let's talk about why it matters. Let me go here. So why does it matter? Leveraging NPS has allowed us to go to market faster. It has cut a 24-month delivery cycle down to 6. Now, I would argue transactionally, it was probably more expensive, but the fact I can do 4 releases now in the same period of time obviously has a lot of value to the business and value to the marketplace. In doing this, we've also increased product quality, because when you re-engineer and have these capabilities to scale up very fast, it forces you to look at your processes. And we haven't stopped there. We've also been able to scale up and include almost over 40 new products into our portfolio. It is with these types of capabilities that has really revolutionized our position in the marketplace, really enabling us to go to market and maintain and even exceed our competition in many, many different ways. And it's funny because everybody goes, well, the cloud will never save you money. And I would argue transactionally that's probably true. But if you can make more use of the time, arguably it is saving money. And that's the biggest way to be cost-effective in scaling. This is, to me, one of our biggest use cases in terms of leveraging a hybrid cloud model, leveraging NPS to really enable these types of capabilities. In the customer service space, we have deployed, for people who have been with NetApp for a while, what used to be called My Auto Support is now called Active IQ. And we have increased that capabilities tremendously over the last, this has actually been the last year now. Time to deploy new data has reduced from almost a year down to a month. Times to deploy new analytics skills almost come out every other week. Very great capabilities in increasing the customer experience with our product lines and really enabling us, again, to do things that our on-prem data center just could not do. Again, two key differentiators in what we feel would be difference in the marketplace and really allowing us to leverage our resources much better by leveraging the public cloud space. So what are lessons learned? Now, one of the biggest challenges was how do you create a common operating model? We made a mistake by setting up a cloud delivery model and an on-prem delivery model, a cloud operations model and a non-cloud operations model. And let's be candid there from a people management space. If I'm a person working in IT, do I want to work on the old and legacy crap, or do I want to work on the new exciting cloud stuff? It creates all different kinds of challenges, plus it's just not efficient. So as you're looking to the cloud, it needs to be incorporated in your existing command center, your existing operating model, and in every aspect, from lifecycle management, from vendor review, everything an IT shop does from service management perspective, all has to be incorporated into a single process. You also have to look at the abilities and look at cloud, not just providing a transactional service, but how it's going to enable you to scale up. And in some cases, especially if you're doing innovation and you're playing with stuff, and when I say playing, being innovative to see what works and what doesn't, that's a scale up, scale down, constant exercise. We really leverage the cloud in that space very strongly in this innovation space to really enable us, again, to fail fast, to experiment, to figure out what works. And also, it's been very interesting. As we were going through this exercise, people thought, well, if we're leveraging the cloud, do I have a role? Do I have a job? What does this mean to me? While, and again, candidly, we have unfortunately had to release some people, a vast majority of them have had opportunities to up-level their skill sets. When you're trying to create, and when you are creating a standardized operating model, you have to allow the abilities to train people, to get them up to new different types of skills, and you'll find a lot of motivation to do that. It actually makes them more valuable in the marketplace, and frankly, makes them more valuable to you. There is a definite need for more architects, a definite need to start to manage IT as more of a service provider. What's not on here, roles like data scientists become key. And also it's not on here, the role of security changes quite a bit. While they are just different data centers, changing the way we manage security and the concept of being able to go into a new data center, a new cloud provider, very quickly and being comfortable with how our architecture works with NPS is key. And again, really looking to not only change the way we're doing business, but the way that we're changing to do IT, to up-level our value, to really be seen as value providers, and also evolve IT, not just to be ticket takers, and don't get me wrong, that's a very important part, but to look at solutions and problems in ways that really enable the business that really becomes key. And the cloud is the backdrop. It needs to become how you do business. And leveraging the various clouds, whether it's your private cloud, the hyperscalers, or the SaaS place, the rules from an IT shop don't change. You need to protect your data, secure your data, have it available when you need it, be able to be flexible to change as the business changes, all to stay ahead of your competition. Cloud is about capabilities. I would argue there is a cost element there. I focus more on the capabilities, because with capabilities and delivering capabilities and that construct, you actually are saving money by being faster and able to deliver. It really has been a transformational effort for us. When I look back at our journey, we have moved from being a very reactionary component type IT management solution to being more of a service provider. And as we continue to move forward in the future, NPS will continue to play a big role and actually a pivotal role in how we leverage the hyperscalers. And we and all I can see is leveraging that more and more every day. I'm really looking at leveraging the cloud in the near future for more data analytics, the data scientist elements of the analytics. Really looking at to leverage more in the AI capacity, because that's how I will gain both capabilities and efficiencies within my own shop. And again, just to kind of, again, show the same picture, it is about, like I talked about, standardized tools, really architecting a way to manage your data seamlessly through these different providers. In our shop, we just look at them as different areas to provide different solutioning, so to speak, almost to a point where it's like just a common virtualized service that can provide different access to different applications. NPS is one of the key elements for our success today and the way we see going forward into the future. I really believe that the common tool set is one of the easiest ways to get over the fear and uncertainty, and really allows, again, IT shops to leverage the cloud for what it's good for. Not just the compute, but the various third-party platforms that it offers, and really extending the capabilities to an IT shop, again, that just wasn't possible in the past on-prem. I'll pause here for questions. I'll turn it back to Lee.
That was outstanding. Every time I hear you tell that story, there are always new pieces of it that jump out at me because there's so many dimensions to it. I got a few questions. I think most of them you answered, so these are going to be sort of random.
That's fine.
I think you actually might have a slide on this, but how do you decide which applications go where? What stays on-prem? What can go cloud only? And what has to go hybrid? Is there a model, a process? How do you make those decisions?
I think it's an excellent question, and I intentionally skipped over it because I didn't want to change the flow of my conversation. But I do have a slide for it, and I want to talk a little bit about it because it's also been a journey in that concept. We've all gone through this, right? So, and they usually look to the architects. In fact, the way we're organized, that responsibility lies with our enterprise architects. And when the CIO looked to the architects, they said, well, so what's the plan? And I remember sitting with the gentleman who's responsible for that organization, and we were talking, and it's like, well, where do you start? Do you start oldest first? Do you start tier 1 or tier 4? Is it just an opportunity discussion? I think it is an opportunity discussion out of those options, but there needs to be a longer-term strategy, and that strategy really needs to be formed around and really how businesses use systems. Now, Gartner has a practice or a methodology called pace layering, and I really like pace layering from a way with how it was really designed in its intent. It was really a way to empower IT leaders to have conversations with the business to avoid customization. I think everybody on the phone has gone through some levels of customization. What happens is it becomes a big liability. And business left to their own solutioning wants to customize everything. They want to customize the app around their business process. And arguably, that seems to make sense. But from a technology perspective, it actually disables you from really being agile going forward. So now let's get to the question. So how do we decide and what applications go where? Well, we turned this pace layering model into a cloud model, but we realized there was a key piece to it that was missing. So Gartner says if you're going to have investment conversations, break them up into 3 categories: systems of record, innovation, and differentiation. And really from an investment strategy, it was in systems of record, you don't need an A+. It's a compliancy thing. A C+ probably is good enough. You don't want to invest any unusual money to make those things better. They're things we all do. And in contrary, systems of discussion, systems of differentiation should be where you're investing money. It should be a focus. That is what makes you different in the marketplace. And let's be candid, systems of innovation is very key too if you're going to continue to remain relevant. So we like that model, and it made a lot of sense to us, but we're wait, it's missing something. It's missing all those commodity things that all of our organizations do. And let me call out some specifics. Email. Now, as I sit here at NetApp IT today, email is our #1 application in terms of business continuity. But let's also be candid. It doesn't make NetApp more money or increase our stock price. it is a system of commodity. It's something that everybody does, and we need to do it well enough to function as a business, but I don't want my precious IT resources doing that. So 4 categories. And a very high level, and I'd love to spend more time on this, but I want to be sensitive to other questions, is, so if you look at how does cloud fit in and how we're using this as a cloud strategy, systems of record should be SaaS. These are things everybody does. Let's be candid. Many of us have lots of integrations, and many of us this is where all of our legacy resides. Yes, that's going to take time, but when the opportunity presents itself, a SaaS model should be considered right up front. I'll book that end on the other side. Commodity services. Come on. If you're spending your critical resources, all of us are always challenged with, where to invest in a resource next. You don't want them to be distracted on things like email or keeping your laptops up to date. You want to take that money and invest it where it makes a difference to your organization. So the bookend, systems of record and commodity services should just be SaaS. Now, where NetApp private storage comes into play, systems of innovation is all about the hyperscalers. And it's beautiful from an IT perspective because if a business wants to go experiment with the POC, you send them in a meaningful way to a hyperscaler, they pick up the charge, they can do whatever they want to, and if something turns out to be good, you already have the data, you can either pull it back if you want or keep it running there and move forward. Systems of differentiation, I think these will always be a multi-cloud type of solution. Some of it will be done on-prem, some of it will leverage the hybrid, the hyperscalers, and in some cases, maybe even elements of it in terms of microservices may be able to be SaaS. I don't know where that's going, but this is the high-level approach. So commodity services should be SaaS, systems of record should be SaaS, and systems of differentiation should just be about the hyperscalers leveraging NPS. And systems of differentiation, it depends on what your systems are and how they look, but I think both the hybrid cloud and the and on-prem, and again, maybe some microservices will definitely be benefits. Now, one of our biggest lessons learned is that we thought this was the end state. And I'm sure as most of you, if you would take your applications, start putting them in here as a high-level strategy, understanding that workload and complexity of integration comes into play, will always alter the ability to execute. There's a step you need to take before this. In fact, we just went through this exercise. We started to put things in here, and because we acquire companies, probably like many of you, you end up with multiple point solutions for very different applications. I'll pick on my friends in marketing for a second. They have 15 different content management solutions. Now, if I were to blindly just go and put them forward, I'm probably not doing anybody a service. So we actually added a front end to this where it's also a Gartner solution, and they have the acronym TIME. Tolerate, invest, migrate, or retire. I don't know if they'll actually, I don't know what the end, I'm sorry, I don't remember the E stands for, but basically it was the systems that you retire. And what I liked about the tolerate ones are things you just wait to die, not very interesting. The invest ones are the most interesting to me. These are the ones that make your company different, they're strategic, and to me, whatever ends up in that strategic element, and again, go look up Gartner Time, because I think it's a really cool way of looking at this, but anything that ends up in this invest and strategic is your first categories you should be looking at to apply to the cloud. I think the combination of doing this application validation exercise is key for any IT shop, and then to look at the backdrop of these 4 categories about where they should end up really allows an IT shop to develop a robust cloud strategy. I know that was very long-winded, but I hope it answered your question.
Well, it did, and we, as you know, Matt, this is not a 5-minute discussion, right? There's a whole process around it. But I think sharing just the way you've organized it and structured the applications is a good model to share with folks. So here's another one. What kind of we've talked about the good. You've made this sound pretty easy. There had to be bumps in the road, right? So give a couple of your biggest roadblocks. And then once you've moved data out of the data center, we've heard about a lot of stories about people then bringing data back into the data center. So kind of a 2-part question, right? What were the roadblocks? And have you gotten far enough in the journey where some of the data is actually coming back on-prem?
So both great questions. Let me tackle the first one. I think the biggest challenge is always the change management side in terms of people's mindsets. IT people like to be in control of what they manage and they can deliver, and for lots of great reasons. So the first challenge was ensuring that this is just an expansion of what we do today, and the fact that it does require up-level skills. One of the things that we did was really to face that head on and to allow a career path to improve and to develop skills. The other piece there is the operating model. Don't have two. Cloud is just another data center. Manage it just like it was another data center. Don't make it any different in terms of delivery. In fact, our case, we have one delivery model, and it decides where it's going to be delivered. Again, it's just delivering to another location. It should be agnostic. You shouldn't care. And you really need to develop your operating model around that, both from a delivery perspective and from a day-to-day support perspective. If something were to happen in a service that we offer, I'll pick on email because we're an Office 365 user. You call the same help desk. There can't be 14 different help desk models, right? So worry about your people and the change management side, because that's going to be your biggest challenge. Managers come up and tell people they will, and I don't want to be mean, but people will be protective of their jobs. You need them to be on board to help support this model, and they need to know they're going to be included in it. And again, in an operations side, whatever you do needs to be incorporated into your operating model, both in the delivery and support. So that's the first one. Let's talk about the data now. I believe that if your data isn't being looked at and reviewed, and they have the capability of being able to put it back to your private cloud or putting it to different public clouds, you probably haven't achieved that next step yet. To me, that is going to be the normal operating premise of the expectations of the future. In fact, I'll pick on a second. We're not really talking about something called, I don't know, I think we just changed our product name. We have a product called Cloud Control that does similar things in the SaaS space. In order for us to maintain high operational efficiency, both in cost and in capabilities, vendors are going to constantly offer new solutions. This is where the IT service management piece comes in. There should be somebody looking at these solutions and maybe not doing this daily. I would not advise that, but routinely, maybe once a quarter, looking at what solutions are out there, how we can incorporate them into our solution offering, putting them into our service catalog, and then building a practice around that for review. So I have seen many customers who actually gone into the cloud and put data into the cloud and then start to move pieces back out. That causes delay. This is the whole part of being proactive and being great in IT management. And we have something called ONTAP Cloud, which also allows you to move data out of the cloud. Our goal is to at least initially leverage some of that solution, but for the more broader generic use cases, I'm definitely leveraging the NPS to allow me to move services around and solutions around at will without having to go through any delays in migrating or moving data. Hopefully that answers your questions, Lee, at least at a high level.
Yeah, no, that was great. And I actually want to come back to the slide that you still have up here, because a couple of one's a statement, one's a question. The two of the bigger challenges we see preventing people from moving to the cloud, I mean, they have these cloud first mandates, is they don't know where to start. So we've taken the methodology that I believe NetApp IT used to develop this model and created a cloud workshop series for our customers. And what those workshops do is look at our customers' own applications, which ones are virtualized, which are not. And the output is a heat map that we deliver back to them that shows which applications have the affinity to move first, which should never move or should move last, and the ones in between. So that prioritization process is a huge part of success. I'm sure you're familiar with the model. Have you seen that deployed with our customers, the cloud workshop capabilities, Matt?
I have. I think it's a great way for customers to understand where they have the biggest opportunities. I think if you marry it again with the validation exercise I was talking about, with the backdrop of this being your strategy, that is an excellent way to help customers understand where their biggest opportunities lie. I want to share, though, and so the answer is yes. I would advise anybody who hasn't looked at a cloud design workshop to really consider it. It's a free service NetApp offers. It's a very powerful exercise. But I want to elaborate that a little bit, Lee. One of the teams that we experimented on for our operating model, because changing your operating model can be kind of a scary thing, is we actually used our shadow IT people as our guinea pigs. We all know we have them. Let me tell you, when we were starting to leverage the hyperscalers, we looked at the shadow IT people first to let them exercise our delivery mechanism and our support mechanism, because quite frankly, why they exist, they don't have really that big of a speaking voice, so you can experiment a little bit with them. We reused the innovation and the shadow IT as our first entry point into at least leveraging this systems innovation space to really get it to be a viable system. But again, to your point, Lee, the biggest challenge then becomes is, so where am I ready, more ready than not? And the Cloud Decision Framework really offers great guidance in that specific solution setting.
That's the phrase I was looking for, the Cloud Decision Framework. Hey, so I think we have time for one more. This is mine because I've heard you tell the story, and I think it was enlightening to me. Data security is the big one in the cloud, right? And our security office, our compliance office is the first one to shut these things down. How and when did you go to those folks to get buy-in to be able to do this?
So that's another great question. And actually, that was the catalyst for us to look to NetApp Private Storage as a solution set. We, like probably most IT shops, said, hey, we want to go I'll pick on install base data. We want to go put install base data into the cloud because in this specific use case, it's a bursty app. It'd be great just to pay for the bursting and pay for usage and direct charge that to a customer and an internal customer and really allow our chargeback effort to move forward. But quite frankly, going to legal in these spot solutions becomes a very trying exercise because you don't know what data specifically you're going to move out to the cloud, and and legal is doing what they need to do to protect us on many different fronts. And the contrast was we look at legal to manage a collective contract. Well, some of the smaller companies will let you change verbiage in your contracts, but go look at the AWS and try to change something there. You can't. And this is really the catalyst that forced us to look at something like a NetApp Private Storage to help alleviate those problems altogether. Arguably, if it's an extension of our data center and has the same security rules, there is no conversation to have. We're managing it within our data center architecture construct, regardless of where that's located, and it just removed the legal concern altogether. I am literally leveraging compute and offering services that these hyperscalers offer. And again, that is, to me, one of the biggest benefits to allow me the capabilities to leverage these solutions as NetApp IT sees fit to really enable the business, either in go-to-market, customer service, or just in pure internal efficiencies.
No, that was outstanding. I just think that's a great final lesson to leave with. We're just at the top of the hour. I want to thank you for sharing your insights and all the background. Hopefully for our audience, we've shared some thought leadership, but also maybe saved them from making some mistakes or taking as long as it might have to go through this cloud journey. Our next session in April, we're actually going to hear from our Customer Zero team. So Customer One runs our production applications. Matt alluded to this group, this rapid experimentation team, this succeed fast or fail fast. And, for your DevOps users, great environment and learnings on how they're leveraging the same solution to be able to deploy software faster, better, quicker with the same tools that we heard about. Thanks very much for joining us today, folks. Have a great rest of your week and look forward to seeing you again next month.